Hello and welcome to this Friday edition of the World Report. I'm Arjun, Samar, Mahendran, and this is what's making headlines around the world. The Trump administration has announced that reciprocal tariffs will come into effect for most countries on August 7. Now, this as a major trade storm is brewing with US President Donald Trump rolling out sweeping tariffs on dozens of countries. Economists say American companies and consumers are the one, in fact, paying the price. Inflation is ticking up and imported goods are getting more expensive. India, meanwhile, stands its ground, refusing to bow down to pressure over Russian oil and trade demands. Now, this comes as the US president has hit out at New Delhi. Listen to Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal.
सरकार हालिया घटनाक्रम से होने वाले प्रभावों का परीक्षण कर रही है। वाणिज्य एवं उद्योग मंत्रालय निर्यातकों और उद्योग सहित सभी हितधारकों से संवाद कर इस विषय पर उनके आकलन की जानकारी ले रहा है। सरकार हमारे किसानों, श्रमिकों, एंटरप्रेन्योर्स, उद्यमी, निर्यातकों, सूक्ष्म, लघु और मध्यम उद्योगों और उद्योग जगत के सभी हितधारकों के कल्याण की रक्षा और संवर्धन को सर्वोच्च महत्व देती है। हम अपने राष्ट्रीय हितों को सुरक्षित करने और आगे बढ़ाने के लिए सभी आवश्यक कदम उठाएंगे।
Over in Washington, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Thursday that India's purchases of Russian oil are helping to sustain Moscow's war efforts in Ukraine. And it is most certainly a point of irritation in New Delhi's relationship with Washington. Although not the only point of irritation, he said. In an interview with Fox Radio, Rubio claimed that the US president is frustrated with the fact that India continues to buy oil from Russia despite having so many other oil vendors available and helping to fund Russia's war effort against Ukraine. Here's what he said.
So as you know, the trade deals are coming down. That's not really your purview. You have enough on your plate. But one thing the president said last night on Truth Social, he goes, Russia continues to be the top oil supplier to India. And during their first 6 months, they're making up 35% of the overall supplies. He, quote, India will therefore be paying a tariff of 25% plus a penalty for the above starting on August 1st. He's upset, maybe you're upset, that India continues to get, instead of a small portion, a great portion of their discounted oil from Russia, which is fueling their war machine. How disappointed are you in a so-called ally?
Look, global trade, India is an ally. It's a strategic partner. Like anything in foreign policy, you're not going to align 100% of the time on everything. India has huge energy needs, and that includes the ability to buy oil and coal and gas and things that it needs to power its economy, like every country does. And it buys it from Russia because Russian oil is sanctioned and cheap, and meaning they have to, in many cases, are selling it under the global price because of their sanctions.
Yep.
And that, unfortunately, that is helping to sustain the Russian war effort. So it is most certainly a point of irritation in our relationship with India. Not the only point of irritation. We also have many other points of cooperation with them. But I think what you're seeing the president express is the very clear frustration that with so many other oil vendors available, India continues to buy so much from Russia, which in essence is helping to fund the war effort, right, and allowing this war to continue in Ukraine.
Donald Trump has signed an executive order on Thursday to increase tariffs on Canadian goods imported to the United States from 25% to 35%. The new import tax rate goes into effect Friday, according to a White House fact sheet. The White House, meanwhile, claimed that Trump had increased tariffs on Canada because it had failed to act on the public health crisis caused by fentanyl and illicit drugs flowing across the northern border into the United States. My colleague Maha unpacks.
For the moment, it remains committed to this intention that Mark Carney himself announced yesterday of recognizing Palestine as a state in UNGA in September. Now, as far as the tariffs issue is concerned, we can see that Donald Trump is now conflating several issues with this. It started off with fentanyl, the issue of fentanyl, and the issue of illegal immigrants crossing over from the northern border of the United States, that is from Canada. It has now gone down to unfairly meting out structures of tariffs to the farmers. He says they are being tariffed almost 200%, and that farmers and dairy products coming in from farm products and dairy products coming in from Canada will therefore be tariffed by the United States as well. And now he is now associating this 35% tariff on non-CUSMA compliant goods coming in from Canada to the stand on Palestine that Canada has taken. So several issues being conflated there, Parmeshwar, as you can clearly see. Although Donald Trump has said that he's upset with Canada's decision on Palestine, but he's also pointed out that it's not likely to be a deal breaker between the two countries. They have been negotiating on a trade deal for a long time, but Mark Carney had pointed out that it is possible that that trade deal might not be complete before the 1st of August. That was the deadline given by the White House. And therefore, the 35% tariff on non-CUSMA compliant goods will come into effect midnight today.
And meanwhile, Donald Trump's global tariffs face significant skepticism in a federal appeals court on Thursday as judges investigated whether the president had, in the first place, overstretched his emergency powers just hours before the latest sweeping round of duties is set to kick in, which has, of course, now been deferred till the 7th of August. Now, the full 11-strong bench of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit in Washington, D.C. is considering whether Trump indeed exceeded his authority in imposing reciprocal tariffs on a large number of U.S. trading partners or not. Judges, meanwhile, repeatedly ask if Trump was justified in relying on emergency powers to effectively tear up U.S. tariff schedule without even consulting the Congress. My colleague Vishal gets you the fine print.
There are several challenges right now as we speak, but the first one is the Federal Appeals Court that is hearing the case. So 5 small businesses and 12 Democratic-led states have moved the court. So it started with a smaller court in a lower court. The argument was heard in a lower court, but that did not materialize. It was sent to a higher court, which is hearing the case now. The case pertains to this use of this 1977 IEEPA law. So this is the law that has been used by the Trump administration to levy, to put these tariffs into effect. And petitioners have argued that that is not correct, that should be outlawed, because the lower court had agreed with the petitioners, as I mentioned earlier, that the functioning of the tariffs is not right, and the Federal Appeals Court is reviewing the case as we speak. And in the same vein, the federal judges in the same case, they have said that the aforementioned IEEPA law doesn't mention tariffs. So that is what they're arguing, that the word tariff has not been mentioned even once in that whole law that has been used to implement these tariffs. So the tariffs have been allowed to stay while the case is being appealed. So as I mentioned earlier, the lower court had stayed the tariffs, but that decision in turn was stayed by this higher court. And many of Trump's trade deals and tariffs hikes could be at risk because of this judgment, although the judgment is not supposed to come within the next week or so. But nonetheless, when it comes, there could be trouble for Trump.
According to a recent Bloomberg report, New Delhi has told Washington officials that it is not interested in purchasing the F-35 stealth fighter. Now, this comes despite growing pressure from Washington to expand its defense imports. The news outlet quoted officials who said that the Modi government is unlikely to proceed with any major new defense acquisitions from the US in the near term, despite Washington's ongoing efforts to secure additional high-value contracts. The topic reportedly came up during PM Modi's visit to the White House in February, when President Donald Trump personally offered the F-35 as part of a broader strategic and defense partnership. Instead, Indian officials indicated that New Delhi remains committed to a defense procurement model that emphasizes technology sharing, local manufacturing, and indigenous capability development. We shift our focus to Canada, which has appointed diplomat Jeff David as the Consul General in Mumbai. This is according to an announcement made by the Canadian Foreign Minister Anita Anand. This is the first diplomatic appointment by Canada here since the expulsion of over 40 Canadian diplomats by India after the row over Canadian allegations under former PM Justin Trudeau that the Indian government in fact orchestrated the killing of Khalistani terrorists on Canadian soil. US Middle East envoy is set to travel to Gaza on Friday as pressure grows on the White House to address suffering in the war-torn enclave. Now, Steve Witkoff plans to visit an aid distribution site run by a US-backed organization. Palestinians seeking food have reportedly been killed by Israeli forces at the group's locations. US President Donald Trump, meanwhile, earlier this week, in fact, he acknowledged real starvation, in his words, in the Gaza enclave, breaking with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who Trump believes is prolonging the conflict to hold on to political power. Two officials have said this. But Trump's frustration likely won't result in any major policy shift, they added. Meanwhile, he's now putting the onus on Hamas and not Israel to end this war. A 30-year-old British Sikh man has been stabbed to death in East London in an attack involving people known to each other, the UK police believe. Gurmukh Singh, also known as Gary, died last week in Ilford in East London and was formally named by the Metropolitan Police on Thursday. The force said its officers had arrested 27-year-old Amardeep Singh on suspicion of the murder that took place on the 23rd of July. It's been over a week now since the murder took place. He's since been given charge with one count of murder and remains in custody until his next court appearance at London's Old Bailey for trial on the 5th of January next year. Meanwhile, detectives also arrested a 29-year-old man and three women aged 29, 30 and 54 respectively in connection with the fatal stabbing. They have all since been released on bail until October, when the police investigation continues. Shifting focus to Southeast Asia, where a Pakistani anti-terrorism court on Thursday sentenced more than 100 members of jailed former PM Imran Khan's party to prison terms on charges related to rioting that targeted military sites back in 2023. Now, 58 of these defendants, who included parliamentarians and senior officials as well, were sentenced to 10 years in prison, and the rest were given sentences ranging from 1 to 3 years. Myanmar's military on Thursday nominally transferred power to a civilian-led interim government ahead of a planned election, with the junta chief remaining in charge of the war-torn country in his other role as acting president. Shifting focus back to Washington, where President Donald Trump continues to put his personal stamp on the White House with a new $200 million ballroom. Work will begin on the site in September and will be paid for by Trump and some unidentified donors. This is what White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has said. Over in Latin America, the party of El Salvador President Nayib Bukele approved constitutional changes in the country's legislative assembly on Thursday that will allow indefinite presidential re-election and extend presidential terms to 6 years now. Meanwhile, lawmaker Ana Figueroa from New Ideas Party had proposed the changes to 5 articles of the Constitution. Now, the proposal also includes eliminating the second round of election, where the 2 top vote getters from the first round actually have been facing off till now. The New Ideas and its allies in the Legislative Assembly quickly approved the proposal with the super majority they hold. The vote passed with 57 in favor and 3 opposed. Over in the Far East, heavy rains and flooding hit northern China, killing at least 70 people so far and leaving dozens missing, and forcing hundreds, in fact, of thousands to evacuate. This is according to local authorities and state-run media outlets. 8 people were killed following the adverse weather, with 18 more missing in the Hebei province. It's next to Beijing for perspective. Meanwhile, rescue operations remain underway there. And strong rainstorms, in fact, also lashed the U.S. East Coast on Thursday, delaying flights throughout the region and also prompting emergency rescues of motorists trapped in deep water on busy highways from the Philadelphia area to all the way, in fact, to New York City. Meanwhile, in New York, flash flooding briefly closed sections of major roadways and also flooded train stations across the metropolitan region, as you see on your screen right there. Meanwhile, commuters captured videos of water pouring over a train on a platform in Manhattan's Grand Central Terminal and water pooling on the floor of a city bus as it pushed through a flooded Brooklyn street. But it's time we slip into a very short break. Much more on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching The World Report on NDTV, and over to the world of business and technology, where shares of tech giants Meta and Microsoft have been soaring, with the two companies adding a combined $400 billion to their market values only this week. Now, the two companies together are worth more than JP Morgan Chase. For prospective viewers, it's America's largest bank, or even Walmart, the country's largest seller, more than 7 times over. For Microsoft, its value briefly crossed the $4 trillion mark, making it only the second company ever to reach that milestone after, of course, NVIDIA. The company's market value retreated slightly to $3.97 trillion at the close of trading for the day. Apple CEO Tim Cook has signaled that iPhone maker was ready to spend more to catch up to rivals in artificial intelligence by building more data centers or buying a larger player in this segment. Now, the company has struggled to keep pace with rivals such as Microsoft and Alphabet's Google, both of which have in fact attracted hundreds of millions of users to their AI-powered chatbots and even assistants for that matter. That growth has come at a steep cost, however, with Google planning to spend a whopping $85 billion over the next year and Microsoft on track to spend more than $100 billion, mostly on data centers. Over in Ireland, MMA fighter Conor McGregor has lost his appeal against a civil jury's finding that he raped a woman in a hotel room in 2018, with Ireland's courts of appeal rejecting his appeal in entirety. The plaintiff, Nikita Hand, alleges that McGregor sexually assaulted her on the 9th of December in 2018. A jury in Ireland's high court, in fact, last November found it in favour of Hand and ordered McGregor to pay her nearly €250,000 in damages. President Donald Trump on Thursday re-established the presidential fitness test for American school children. Now, it's a program which was created back in 1966, in fact, to help interest young people in following healthy and active lifestyles. Now, children had to run and perform sit-ups, pull-ups or push-ups and a sit and reach test. But the program changed in 2012 during the Obama administration to focus more on individual health than athletic feats. In a late afternoon ceremony, Trump signed an order re-establishing the President's Council on Sports, Fitness and Nutrition, as well as the fitness test to be administered by his health secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Listen in to what Trump had to say on this matter.
The order that I'll sign today in a few moments directs the Council to develop strategies to improve America's physical fitness and renew the American spirit, excellence, competitiveness, and sportsmanship. To that end, I'm pleased to announce that we're officially restoring the Presidential Fitness Test and the Presidential Fitness Award, and it's going to be a very big thing.
Grammy winner rapper 2 Chainz is known for painting pictures through his music for his fans, but this time, viewers, he's taking a more visual approach. He's teamed up with his cousin Hollywood veteran Omar Epps to write their short film Red Clay. Now, 2 Chainz born Tawheed Epps discovered he was cousins with Omar during the pandemic. After striking up a relationship, Chainz discussed the potential of working together on his passion project. Listen in.
Vulnerability would probably be the common denominator across the board when dealing with red clay for me. It's something that I'm still dealing with and very embarrassed to even talk about. It's been probably more or less a family secret of mine. I've never mentioned it in interviews and even in my music, and a lot of my music is lifestyle based.
The European singer Justin Timberlake has been diagnosed with Lyme disease. The former NS by NC star announced on Instagram Thursday. Timberlake shared the news in a post commemorating his Forget Tomorrow tour, which wrapped up in Turkey on Wednesday, adding that the disease can be relentlessly debilitating both mentally and physically. The sexy back singer, who described himself as a private person, wrote he considered ending his tour when diagnosed, but also wrote that he decided that the joy of performing brings me far outweighed the fleeting stress my body was feeling. I'm so glad I kept going, said Timberlake in that rather emotional post. And well, that's all we have for you this Friday. Take care and have a wonderful weekend.